see if we can work out what event we're looking at. Hello folks, I'm Alex Burnham. Welcome to the Motorsport Detectives. Now in a previous episode we've been looking at a cine film that had been labelled motor racing but turned out to be a complete mystery as it was made up of a whole variety of different films all spliced together. You can see how we untangled all of that by following the link down in the comments section, which will take you to part 1 of this mini-series. In this part 2 we're going to focus in on the race that we now know took place at Brands Hatch. We want to find out when this race took place and what sort of event it was. There'll be other episodes that focus on the footage from Spa-Francorchamps, plus something looking at that mystery circuit. We'll try and find out where it is. In episode 1 of Jumbled Up Sportscars, we discovered the exact spots that all of this footage from Brands Hatch had been taken. But now let's focus in, have a look at the cars that are featured, see if we can work out what event we're looking at. So the best way of doing this is to watch that footage again. These opening shots of the Brands Hatch circuit don't give us a huge amount of detail, other than it looks like it's early 1970s. Worth noting that the weather doesn't look particularly good, it looks rather wet. That might help us identify the event. The first real clue we have is the type of cars we see on track. These are the big Group 6 and Group 5 sports cars that race in the late 60s and early 70s. Some of the footage makes it a bit hard to make out, but we can definitely see things like Porsche 917s, Ferrari 512s and Alfa Romeo 33.3s. A great first step here then is to take the cars that we can recognise and see what dates they overlap, and that'll give us a rough time period as to when we're looking. So the Ferrari 312 PB, which was raced between 71 and 73. The famous Gulf liveried Porsche 917 Ks, which were raced in 70 and 71. And one that's my favourite, the Alfa Romeo 33.3, sometimes called a Spider or a Tipo 33. Now these were mostly raced in 1971, as the car went through various different bodywork changes. So when this is visible in the footage, it gives us quite a clear indication of the year we're aiming for. The obvious overlap of all of those seems to be the 1971 season, so I think that needs to be the focus of our attention. So we want to look and see what sports car races took place at Brands Hatch in 1971. So a quick search online has revealed that in the 1970s, the World Sports Car Championship was actually known as the International Championship for Makes, focusing much more on the companies that made the vehicles rather than the teams or drivers themselves. With a year and a circuit already in place, and the championship pretty well sorted out, it's quite easy to find the Brands Hatch 1000-kilometre event from that season. So I found a scanned entry list from that 1971 Brands Hatch 1000-kilometre event, and let's see if we can match up some of the entries in this race to some of the footage that we have. So on our cine footage we can definitely make out car number 1, Ferrari 512M, and this checks out perfectly with our entry list. Car number 51 is another Ferrari, a 512 PB. This one driven by Jackie Ickx and Clay Regazzoni, And again, car 51 on our entry list matches that pretty much perfectly. We've got a Porsche 917 number 6, which again matches the car on our entry list, as does car number 10, which is also another 917, but this time a privately entered version. Final confirmation would be car 55, which is one of those Alfa Romeos. That is enough cross-referencing to pretty much convince me that we've got the right event straight away. So let's see how some of those cars got on during the race. That Ferrari number 1 managed to come home in 4th place. This was a good result, considering they'd started down in 11th. That Works Ferrari car 51, with Clay Regazzoni and Jackie Ickx behind the wheel, well, they'd started in pole position, but in the end, the best they could achieve was 2nd place. The Alfa Romeo number 55 had started in 2nd place, but it was their sister car, car 54, which actually went home with the race victory. Andrea de Adamic and Henry Pescarolo had taken that victory, which was a bit of an upset. The Alfa Romeos weren't the dominant force. Those Ferraris and Porsches were seen to be the much better cars, but that little Alfa Romeo had provided a bit of an upset by beating the once dominant Porsches and Ferraris to the victory. That Porsche 917, car number 6 that we looked at earlier, well, they were the best Porsche home, coming back in 3rd place. Joe Siffert and Derek Bell taking that final podium position. That yellow Porsche 917, car number 10, well, that was the last car to score points, finishing the race in 6th place. 1971 was definitely Porsche's year. They won most races in that World Championship season, including big events such as the Daytona and Le Mans 24 Hours. The only team or the only car to beat them that season happened to be that little Alfa Romeo 33.3. Victories at Brands Hatch, like we've seen in our footage, and Watkins Glen at the end of the year were all very well and good for Alfa Romeo, but the real jewel in their crown that year would be a victory at the 1971 Targa Florio race. Now, hopefully I'll get to talk about the Targa Florio in another episode, but just for those who don't know, Targa Florio, well, in the 1970s, was a race of around 70 odd kilometres of Sicilian open countryside motoring through towns, villages, up and down mountains. It's an utterly mad race, and effectively a home win for Alfa Romeo there was big news for the relatively small team. Well, there we have it, folks. Once we'd untangled some of the mixed up footage from our 8mm cine film, we were able to pinpoint this Brands Hatch race pretty quickly, and we were able to discover it showed some pretty cool footage of that Alfa Romeo victory from 1971. Do please come back and join me in part 3 of this mini-series, where we'll be delving into the Spa-Francorchamps footage, see whether any of that links to the Brands Hatch race or whether it shows something completely different. Until then, please do subscribe to my channel, tell your friends about these videos, and come back again for more Motorsport Detectives.